really planning to do it. I didn't wake up and make a conscious decision to say, you know what, I'm going to stop watching the news. But I realized that having stopped watching it like I was watching it, I don't feel as bad. The anxiety isn't kind of there, but it's always something. But then, when you're in the house with all these folks, it just everything else kind of shifts, like, oh, wait a minute. And then I go cut on the news and I'm like, you know what? It ain't so bad in here right now, considering what's going on with some of the others. But it is hard to manage, especially, I guess with kids too, because it's hard in many ways because nobody alive, I guess, really now has ever experienced anything like this or anything close to this. So it's not like, we've been here before and we'll get through this. I mean, I believe we will, but it's all new. It's like,
yes, we will.
It's like a new time zone is starting. So it's like everything before Corona and now after Corona, and then trying to figure out what the new normal is and what we're going to do differently as a day to day.
Yes, sir.
It's interesting.
Yes, sir. And that kind of goes back to what I said. Sometimes you have to just turn off the news and go throughout your day. And sometimes, what happened 3 days ago, you can catch up with it while just watching the news 3 or 4 days later. And being inundated and drowned with coronavirus, Corona. We even in my house we even got a nickname, Corona Marie Jenkins. We just say Corona's here. Wow. Yeah, Corona Marie Jenkins. She clown. She messing it up for everybody.
Yeah,
Corona Marie Jenkins. She messing it up.
I just don't want to be out there.
And then we do. You got to make light. You have to. You have to make light, and you have to make yourself laugh sometimes.
I ain't got no problem doing that. I do that all the time. I'm sitting here with this, because and you hear conflict every day. Something else is changing. So for a while there, they were saying, "Oh, you don't need to wear a mask." Then later, a couple of weeks go by, they say, "Well, a mask won't hurt." So everybody's got a mask on, and like, "Oh, wait a minute." So it's just you just gotta. And the interesting part is, I try to find an upside to some of this stuff. And some of it is, where you can't go outside, well, then you have to go deeper inside. If you try to get real for it, try to sit down and think about it and pace yourself. And it's almost like, aside from the folks who can't get away from it, who are, like yourself, who are right there in the front line and having to deal with it. But for the rest of us, try to manage, I'm one who always has to try to find the bright side in whatever it is. And sometimes that's difficult, especially when other folks are suffering. But you still try to maintain some positivity and say, okay, this is a reset button. This is a reset button. What am I, how we've been living our life, how we've been rolling day to day, and things that you used to take for granted. You're like, wait a minute, this is something, no more, what's going to happen when this is all done? Are we ever going to go back to shaking hands? And now, used to talk about how they would do in Asia where they would bow.
Nope.
And, they don't shake hands. They kind of just bow and pray. Hell, I'm going to be bowing. I think I'm going to pick that up. I'm going to be an international man. I'll just wave from over there, It's just different. It's a different.
It is. And again, we joke, but my uncle, we joked about this. He said, "Well, man, they've been social distancing from us in the elevators for the longest." He said, "So now it's just gonna become the regular."
That's right. He said
it's the regular now. They social distancing from each other.
Because this corona is an equalizer. It don't care. Yes. It doesn't care what your race is. It doesn't care what your age is. It doesn't care what your political affiliation is. And it also kind of shows in a real kind of funky way that what you do affects me. What you do wherever it affects me. So and what I do
domino effect. It's
crazy.
That's right.
It's a domino effect. Your air is my air, and and our air together can get us sick.
That's right.
Yes, sir.
Well, one of the other things that is becoming a phenomena with this virus, unfortunately, is its disproportionate impact on the African American community. I know that folks are suffering around the world, but it just appears here in the United States, according to all the news outlets, Fox, MSNBC, CNN, that African Americans are disproportionately impacted by this, particularly in St. Louis, where I believe everyone that passed away from the virus was African American. And so from a mental health perspective, how do you think that's impacting the community, not just the African American community, but the community at large? And what type of advice would you give if you were receiving that call for help from those particular communities, such as St. Louis?
The hard thing is, I know we all have philosophies and we all have reasons why. Right now we're waiting for CDC to come up with some data that tells us why it seems like it's hitting the African American, the brown community, the Latino community the most. Again, my mindset, my philosophy, at least from a therapist standpoint, is we've been raised with the mindset of last one hired, first one fired. So that means, guess what? I can't afford to stay home. I can't afford to just miss a day of work. I can't afford to say, you know what, this virus is going to stop me from going to work today. A lot of us have the mindset. The Bible says you don't work, you don't eat. And we've been raised with that mentality. And I think with that mentality and us coming out and saying, hey, I have to work. I have to make sure things are done. I have to make sure bills are paid. People are living, and this is society-wide, people are living not just paycheck to paycheck, they're paycheck behind. And so when you make a call and say, well, everybody stay at home, a lot of people saying, I just got a job. I'm just getting back into the workforce. I'm just working. Okay. I can't afford to be home. And again, with communities calling, first thing that, and it goes to my doctoral thesis, is that we have to get rid of that stigma of what we have as a community when it comes to mental health.
Sure.
We have to stop stigmatizing mental health and say, guess what? I need help. I've been through some things. I need to talk to somebody. And guess what? I have an opportunity to talk to somebody that looks like me, somebody that understands me. Let me talk about the mental health issues that I do have. Because we've been taught to push a lot of things under the rug and keep it pushing. If somebody came to you and said, I had a headache, what you'll say, rest, here goes some aspirin, take care of it. But when you look at yourself in the mirror and say, I have a headache, I got to go to work today, I'm going to push through. We don't have self-compassion. And that's something that we're missing within ourselves, is a lot of self-compassion. I'm not feeling good. I need to slow down. I need to rest. No, I can push through it. Guess what? I'm going to the second job. I don't care what's going on. I'm coughing, I'm sick, but I'm still going to work. Right. Self-compassion is what we're missing. And I will push that so much into the community. Let's look at our self-compassion. Because, again, we take care of other people before we take care of ourselves. Wow. And that's just who we are.
Wow. Well, I wanted to share a couple of thoughts that are coming in on the chat, because you really lighten up our chat room right now. And William is saying that if you think about it, your average listener is fortunate to be able to stay home. There are many around the world who are crammed together and can't stay home or socially distance themselves. Political refugees at the borders around the world, the imprisoned and densely populated areas, i.e. New York, Baltimore, Chicago, New Orleans. And so what do you say to William's comment? Because he raises some good points.
And again, that goes back to the society that we're in. It's hard when a lot of times, especially in Vegas, we find families and communities that live together. I live around the corner from so-and-so. Where I grew up at, my grandparents stayed on one block, 2 blocks away was my aunt, another block away was another aunt, and around the corner was us. So we were all in that same community. So guess what? When something happened, we all got together in the sense of family, the sense of being together, the sense of belonging. You got that from your family. You got that from being in those situations. Now, and that's what happens when one person goes to work, one person gets sick. Guess what? We all get sick because, again, and we can social distance as best as we can. But sometimes when you're in your community is you. Your sure. family is who you are. Your family is who you define yourself.
Sure.
So when one person in this family gets sick, the family gets sick.
Sure.
Now with the incarceration, it's hard. Again, that's a systematic problem. we could probably be talking about that.
Sure.
All night, literally.
Sure.
Literally.
Sure. Well,
yes.
I looked at, I was looking at the sports network the other day, and they were talking about Dak Prescott and that gathering that he and Ezekiel Elliott attended. And apparently there was quite a few people there. I know in my neighborhood, we saw large gatherings of folk, play dates, and all kinds of ridiculous things. And so, what is the psychology of that type of deviance, Mr. Franklin? How do you deal with that? How do you get that message across to your customers? Look, guys, you got to stick this thing through. I know you want to get with your friends and your boys, your frat brothers or whoever, but we have to stick with this process. Well, how do you get that across?
Yeah.
And why can't people
and you know
deal
what?
with that?
And again, it is a mindset. And even in my line of practice, I believe in it's in the DNA. We are relational people. I relate to whoever I relate to. I become a member of this group because I want to relate. I want a group of individuals with the same like mind. The internet has given us an opportunity to be like mind with people across the world. But we always find an individual who has a like mind as me, and I always want to be around that person who makes me feel good because we agree. And that like mindset, because I'm a relational person, means guess what? I know COVID is around. I'm going to put everything aside. I'm going to make sure that I do everything. I'm going to wash my hands. I'm going to cover my face. But I need to at least be around my guys. I need to be around my people. I need to be around people that make me feel good. Because looking in the mirror all day, it's hard to make yourself feel good when you just you. And being around people and hearing people and feeling and hearing somebody else laugh and getting out of that routine. Like I said, most of us find a way to get rid of stress and anxiety by working out, going to hang out with the fellas, going to hang out with our girls, and even not hanging out with our girls, just letting everybody else leave the house and having the house to ourselves. That is another way of that we do, but we find ourselves being relational beings, which means I relate to mama, I relate to grandma, I relate to uncles, I go to college, and guess what? My roommate was my roommate ended up being in my wedding 10 years later because we were best friends when we were 18 years old. That I've known since preschool because we relate and we're relational individuals, and I find people that I love to be around, and I don't want to be not be around those people. So I always, if it's against society, but I'm with my friends, guess what? We're together and we are a group of like-minded individuals. And people are defined that. When I was in Michigan about 3 weeks ago, there were so many people outside, like you said, with their kids having play dates. Even though you're supposed to social distance, but I know she's okay. And that's literally what somebody told me. I know she's okay because she's going to do what I would do. I would wash my hands. I would make sure I'm clean. And I see people spraying themselves with Lysol going to playgrounds with their kids. And the question was, do you know that this is real? Yes, I know that this is real, but I still need my kids to feel friendship. I still need to feel my friendship. I still need to talk to this person, and the phone just not working.
Wow. I gotta need some clarification of one of our listeners want to know, can you explain your relational thieves definition?
Relational what?
Relational thieves.
Okay. Again, I love being around individuals who I can relate to. I'm relational. I grew up in a household. I grew up around people. Even those individuals who, how can I say, those individuals that were taken from their home. We know that, guess what? At Child Haven, they don't just put a kid by themselves. They put a kid with 5 or 6 other kids. You have group homes for individuals who don't have parents, who find themselves even in alternative schools, alternative living situations. They always seem to group up. So we are relational, as in I need to find somebody that we've always drifted towards, somebody we can relate to. We have those individuals who would say, yes, I'm a loner in society, but when I find somebody I have something in common with, I always want to be around that person. So we are relational beings. We are relational individuals.
Wow. Well, I tell you, we have some more folks on the chat line. We have Gina on the chat line. I believe we have